Thanksgiving, everybody. I'm Sam Shihab.
I am Brian Burke.
And today we're going to talk about a family-related issue, bringing a family member to the U.S.
For a visit.
For a visit. We had our Thanksgiving lunch today, and the vote, or Brian, I think, was driving a trip to the Mexican restaurant. So we had Mexican Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
And I tried to look up how to say Happy Thanksgiving in
Dia de
Spanish.
Gracias, Day of Thanks.
See, your Spanish comes through because I was like, this is too complicated, so I decided not to memorize it. But we had great Thanksgiving get together, the whole office, and get to relax a little bit and chat and laugh and have a good time. And back to the office for this presentation. And because Mexican food is so salty, I have my water with me, because I definitely need to drink some water as I'm talking today.
Yeah.
Same thing with Brian. But this event, this time is about family. It's about thanking whoever you believe in, thanking God, thanking your family, thanking your friends for our health and prosperity and survival in a harmonious way of living in America or whatever you may be. Bringing a family to the U.S. is a topic that a lot of people kind of need to learn a couple things about it from a legal perspective, and we're here to help.
Yeah, we talked. We usually talk about employment-based, immigration matters here. This is not truly that, but the bottom line is we have a lot of people, a lot of clients here in the United States as employment-based non-immigrants or waiting for a green card, and you guys are allowed to have your family come to the U.S. and say hello as well, and we figure why not talk about it? It's a good topic.
Stay with us. We'll be back. Good. That's even better.
Yeah.
All right. The visitor visa, I guess, is the big one. Is the B1 visitor visa is what we're talking about. But we're going to explain to you, the B1, B2, and what to do at the consulate that enhances your chances for approval. This is a visa where the consulate controls the decision. This is not something, you can apply for a change of status here, obviously, to the USCIS, but normally a visitor visa is applied at the consulate and the proper presentation is presented, and hopefully you will have a positive decision. And I have seen enough of those in my lifetime, Brian, you have too, where I can quickly tell people, you got a problem or you don't have a problem. And they would like to have a certain parameters to these applications. And if you're well within these parameters, I think your application goes reasonably well. If you're way outside the parameters, then it is not very good. I had a gentleman that called me who is the brother of my my undergrad buddy from college, from undergrad here at the Ohio State University. And he said, I met this wonderful lady, and I want to bring her here to visit my family on the visitor visa. And listened to him for 5 minutes, and I just told him very quickly, I'm sorry to tell you that this is a very difficult case to approve. And he was like taken back by me being very direct and negative. And I went through the whole thing and helped him prepare as much as possible, highlighting the fact that this is really a very difficult case. And the case was not approved, as I have informed him. But let's go through the details of it, Brian.
Yeah, so, well, first of all, U.S. visitor visas, there's business visitors and there's tourist visitors, and they kind of get the same visa. It's the B1/B2 visa. They're typically approved for 10 years in most cases, probably for most people, they're family members in our audience. And, let's talk about what kind of, what's the difference between that visitor visa and the business visa and the tourist visa. So, we're really kind of probably talking about, for people bringing your family, you're talking about, tourism. That's, tourism, visiting family, attending a family event in the United States. You're coming here, or you're going to a particular place. I want to see Disney World or something like that.
Visit for pleasure.
For pleasure, yeah. Yeah, anything you can convince them you're going to enjoy in the United States, I guess, is fair game. The other side is, same visa, but, depends upon what you're applying for at the consulate. Business, that's attending meetings, attending trainings, trainings. That sort of thing is really at the heart of the business visitor visa. But we're really here to talk about bringing family to the United States, so we'll sort of talk more about, what you're looking at there. So, and I guess maybe as we go through these things, we'll start to talk about, the things that really can harm cases as well along here.
Well, let's focus a little bit on the B2 visitor for pleasure.
Yeah.
I had a call. We always have those stories, right? I had a call from a gentleman, and he said, I'm getting engaged to this lady who is originally from my home country, but she lives in the U.S. I live in the foreign country. No, as a matter of fact, he was a student here. He was a student here, and the girl is a U.S. citizen of the same ethnicity. And he called me and he said, my parents are going to the consulate to get the visitor visa. What shall we tell the consulate? I said, why are your parents coming here? And he said, they're coming here to see the girl. He said, here's what you tell the consulate. We're coming to the United States to see the girl.
Yeah.
It's exactly what you just told me. You tell them. Nothing else, nothing more. And called me after the interview, and he was laughing, and he said, they asked, and we gave him exactly the same answer, and the officer laughed and immediately approved it because it was an honest, sincere, no fancy answer.
Yeah.
And that's what they're looking for. They're looking for an honest, they want to look at you and see honesty and sincerity, not a complicated answer. Most visitor for pleasure are simple, and you need to give a simple answer.
Yeah.
So that's the first advice I give people. And normally they are, your grandchild is born here, you want to go visit, and we'll talk a little bit more about that because there's a couple twists to that one.
Sure.
You're coming here to go to Disney or go to the beach and spend time with the family. You're coming here because the husband is not able to leave because of work, but you want to be with the family, so you want to be at the house helping. You're coming here because there was bad news, somebody is very sick.
Yeah.
And you need to kind of come in and just provide support. And there are things that within the context of that activities hit the wrong nerve with USCIS, and certain things are mainstream acceptable. And you, as a non-attorney, not dealing with these things, really will never tell the difference. And you probably, it's nice to have a conversation with counsel of your choice to help you with this process. Although most of them go through without counsel assistance, but I think a little bit of counsel assistance help.
Yeah. I mean, is the short answer. I mean, I get asked questions about this. People contact me. I'm on H-1B status out of the blue. What do I need to get my parents to come visit me? Yeah. And it's worth talking about. I mean, most importantly, that it's really possible for even people here on temporary visas to say hello and bring somebody.
Yes.
So I guess fundamentally, there's certain like check mark things that the consulate thinks about when they're considering a visitor visa. And I'll sort of run down those lists. One, they're looking to make sure you're coming here for a temporary purpose. I guess, and the other side is, if you say something that sets them off and makes them think you're going to be staying permanently, that's a great way to see a case denied. So we're talking about, maybe he's coming to visit somebody on an H-1B visa, but if your parents come to the consulate and say, hey, I'm coming to stay with my, U.S. citizen child on a permanent basis, it's a great way to see that, visa application denied.
So you have to be able to articulate the temporary nature of your intention.
Yeah. And, you can give evidence to support this. You can give, round trip plane tickets, or you can give them an itinerary of specifically what you want to do.
But when you go to the consulate, you don't have a ticket. You haven't bought a ticket yet.
Well, that's a good point. You can still give them an itinerary though. Basically saying, I'm coming on January 15th. I'm gonna stay for 2 weeks. 1 week we're gonna go down to Disney World. The next week we're just gonna hang out at home, and then I'm expected to leave. Of course, pending your approval, consulate. Right. And I guess all of these topics we're gonna hit, Sam, really kind of lend themselves to the general government paranoia that somebody's going to come to the United States and stay on a permanent basis, which is not what they want people doing on a visitor visa. So the next one on the list is ties to your home country. It's what's going to bring you back to the place where you're coming from. So that's, if you have significant amounts of family that are staying in the home country, if you have, a job that's clearly available to you there that's continuing, or if you have, property, real estate, vehicles, anything that, anything that says you have a life to come back to here. So, there's your parents coming to the United States, well-established adults who have no intention of coming to the country, or versus, the unaccompanied younger brother who is college age and, basically has, no offense to them, has nothing to their name, no home, no job, no nothing. They're more likely to see scrutiny from the consulate. Mm-hmm. Again, funds to cover the travel. So basically, they're looking to see that you have funds to cover the trip. They are concerned that how's this person going to support themselves in the United States, and if the consulate can ask, you can give them documents to show that I have funds in my account, or you can say, hey, my relative in the U.S. is paying for this trip, and they can provide that same sort of information, saying, hey, we have the cost to cover this trip. Don't worry about, mom and dad while here in the United States. We're covered.
So ties to the home country is the essence of the case. Probably 90% of the denials are because of lack of evidence of ties to the home country. So this is an easy one for those who've been working, who had a long-term job, and have property, for example, let's say mom is coming but dad is not coming, and they've been living together for the last 40 years. That's a huge tie to the home country. I have a job that I have held for the last 15 years, and I have a 3 weeks vacation, and here's my evidence of my vacation. I'm going back to my job. As a huge tie to the home country. Especially if you're highly paid. Situations where, as you've said, ties to the home country become extremely challenging. I am a single female, 19 years of age, 100% single, don't have a job, don't have a whole lot of money, and I love America, and I want to come and visit this cute guy I met.
Oh, hey, you're not getting a visa, my friend.
Yeah, so that's a big one. That's a big problem. There's no ties to the home country, and that's almost like it's a wasted trip to the consulate.
Yeah. So one of the things we're talking about is, you are sending, if you're inviting somebody to come to the United States, well, you're in the United States. You've been through a visa application process before, and you're, what it's like. You can really help, your family members coming out, especially if, they're not really experienced in international travel, by laying these things out for them. A simple letter to the consulate explaining, hey, I'm so-and-so. I'm inviting my parents to come to the United States. They're going to stay with me for a couple of weeks. They have jobs, they have lives, they have family that are in the home country, and I'm paying for their costs. That's a simple letter that anybody can write and really give, let's say that relative you don't trust at the consulate, the relative you don't trust to convey their case very well, you can give them a leg up in the application. Give them a letter saying I'm inviting them, help them get evidence of these things. There are tickets to Disney World we bought. Here's a hotel room that we've gotten. Here's copies of their property records, et cetera, et cetera. It's a really simple letter. It's just about the facts. It's something that can really be done to help somebody give them a leg up.
Yes. Wonderful. Now, impermissible activities. And this is the one where I see cases that should not be approved, should not be denied, gets denied. What's the big one, Brian? The biggest one everybody makes.
I don't know if it's what you're thinking of, but here's what I'm thinking of. It's the baby's been born. My new grandchild's been born. I'm going to come over and take care of the baby for a little bit.
Help the family.
Help the family.
She needs my help at home. I'm coming because it's in the culture. It's in the Eastern culture. Mom comes to help
When
the
the baby
daughter
comes.
when the baby comes.
Yeah.
And that is like oil and fire. It is a bad idea to go and tell mom needs my help. And I'm coming to help her because they're not able to find help or the husband is gone.
We don't want to hire. They don't want to hire a nanny. They want it to be family. You know.
The consulate views this statement as you are coming to the U.S., your grandma is coming to the U.S. to replace an American job. And that is an automatic denial to your visa. And if you guys, whoever is listening or watch this video, if there's one thing you want to take from this, is what we just shared with you. That's the number one item that people say in good faith and get completely destroyed because this is an automatic denial almost.
Yeah. And that's quickly resolved. You talk to counsel of your choice, and you tell them. I'll usually ask, so why is your family member coming to this country? And they'll say, well, to help with the baby. And I'll say, well, that's outside the rules. They're definitely allowed to come see the family, and nothing against them. Holding the baby and saying hello, but you just have to make it clear to the consulate. You have to make it clear to the relative because they have to be acting in good faith when they go to the consulate. And you have to make it clear to them that you're coming to see us. You're coming to visit. You're allowed to visit the baby. You just can't be coming to.
You're allowed to change a diaper or two. You're allowed to heat the milk one time. Yeah, you are. I mean, but if you are not allowed to take on the role of a full-time helper,
Yeah.
or even a part-time helper, then that's
Yeah.
really a big one. So just this is not something that you want to say, I'm coming here to visit. I haven't seen my grandson or granddaughter. Love to see her. She's just born last week, and I want to be
I'm
around.
excited, yeah.
I want to be around the family.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's any sort of variation on that is really where something that can be gotten there. I guess another common one, it's immigrant intent is evidenced by something obvious is something that really jumps to mind. So, let's say, you have a brother or sister who's a U.S. citizen and they're sponsoring mom and dad. They have filed an I-130 for them, to allow them to immigrate to the United States. There's a very good chance you're going to have a problem with a visitor visa in that scenario. Why? Because you've already told the U.S. government that you're intending to stay on a permanent basis. And you're talking about, oil. I'm going to use oil and water. They don't mix. They'll tell you, hey, you're saying you're in this application. You're saying you're coming to the U.S. to immigrate, and here you're saying you're coming to stay as a visitor. And while it's possible to get a visitor visa while you have a immigrant petition pending, I think the consulates are very happy to err on the side of caution and say, you know what, I think you're okay to wait. Well, you come back here when that I-130 petition is approved, when you're ready to immigrate.
Which is very unfair, by the way.
Yeah, it's really frustrating, especially right now, the long processing times of immigration processes. Typically speaking, you're telling somebody right now, if you want to bring your U.S. citizen, you want to bring a mom and dad to the United States, a year and a half to 2 years to get them, physically present here.
What about a brother and sister application? It's insane. It's probably for never.
Yeah.
It's never. And then how can you justify denying somebody?
Well, yeah. I mean, I want to elaborate on that. So basically, if you're a U.S. citizen and you're sponsoring a brother or sister, the backlog for most countries is about 15 years, I think. In India and China, it's like 7. In a couple other countries, it's like 17 years. And so what? Are they supposed to never come during those 17 years, never come and see you? And like I said, it's possible to get a visitor visa during that time. And I guess I would say it's all about putting together a good application. It's explaining, hey, this person has all these ties, they have a job, they have property, and ultimately you're going to have to explain, yeah, I have filed an I-130 petition for them. We understand, we all know that it's going to be a long time before they can come here on a permanent basis. That means this trip must be, by its nature, short of limited duration.
Excellent point, Brian. So before we go into crossing into the border,
Yeah.
we probably should talk about a humanitarian parole.
Yeah.
A humanitarian parole is another method that you can request USCIS, not the consulate, USCIS, to issue a parole to come to the U.S. Now, in what scenarios in which a humanitarian parole is advantageous over a visitor visa?
I'd say, there's two factors in my mind. A visitor visa is, for some reason, impractical, like the wait times are long, or perhaps just somebody is flat out ineligible for one. And a humanitarian parole has the requirement generally that there's a major humanitarian concern. So for me, I think that sick relative and visitor visa entirely impracticable.
Why?
Why would a visitor visa?
Yeah, I have an emergency. I need to come in. I think there is a ground of inadmissibility to the visitor visa that I think a parole does not.
Well, yeah. I mean, so maybe you're talking about the scenario of I'm coming to care for my relative if they're sick and dying. It sounds a lot like the nanny scenario where you're replacing the job of a U.S. worker.
Right, but it is needed
Yeah.
because you haven't seen that person, and that person could be terminally ill, and you need to provide support. So a B visa may be inconsistent
Yeah.
with the requirement of the B visa. The council cannot give you a B visa, but can give you a humanitarian parole.
Yeah.
And the other scenario is you have filed for an I-130 and you have an immigrant petition,
Yeah.
and therefore a B visa will not be approved.
They will tell you we can't give you a B visa because you're an intending immigrant, so you got to find some other way to get there quickly. Yeah, that's a great
And
case.
you can do something called a humanitarian parole. So humanitarian parole, we just had a humanitarian parole approved. We've worked on it really, really hard. Joe worked on it, Attorney Joe Morhart.
Joe took the lead.
Was he happy on that? I didn't have a chance to talk to him. They came over the weekend.
I mean, yeah, I'll tell a little bit of the story. This is somebody, was the U.S. citizen was,
Sick.
Sick, yeah.
So, and it was required, and there was a lot of complications because of a lot of history, and we were able to kind of go around the visitor visa into the humanitarian parole, and were able to unite the family here this weekend, and we were very happy that will happen. But it exists as an option for you when the elements of the B visa for visitor visa is not available, and there is a dire humanitarian basis to need that family member to come to the United States immediately.
Yeah.
So when you cross the border at inspection, that's the second point, that you'll be asked almost the same questions. What's your purpose of coming to the U.S.? Because a lot of time, that visitor visa that your mom or dad have may be issued 5 years ago, and you made multiple trips to the U.S. So now they must ask you, what's the intention of your entry to the U.S., and what would be your advice, Brian?
Well, the very first thing, general piece of advice you gave is, be honest, because if the customs folks think you're fibbing to them, those guys, we always talk in our office and talk about the consular folks having broad discretion. Well, so do the customs folks. If they don't think you meet the requirements, or they think you're fibbing to them, they're very happy to turn you around and send you on an airplane back to your country of origin. For one. But it's look at the same issues that we discussed earlier. It's why are you coming? Making sure you have a realistic plan to return. Making sure you have ties to your home country, and that you're going to have financial support in the United States. Are really the same sort of things.
And they can process you right away at the window, or they can take you to something called secondary.
Yeah.
And secondary, then that's when they want to ask more questions and to be comfortable that you meet the requirements. And one thing about I get calls. They're going to secondary. Can you please call customs and clear it up for us? My experience with customs is they do not want to hear from the lawyer. As a matter of fact, by law, by U.S. law, there is no right to legal representation for the most part at the point of inspection. You are on your own, and therefore it's good to, if there's any concern, there's a wrinkle about a question, or you're not clear about something, get a consultation with an attorney of your choice to help you clear up some of those issues if there's any concern with the purpose of the visit, concern about funds, but they usually want to check a return transportation ticket. They want to make sure you have money. And obviously, I don't have to go through what they go through in terms of checking cell numbers and looking through. They do all kind of investigation.
Yeah, I mean, but any of that stuff is fair game. I mean, let's talk about looking through your cell phone. I mean, I've talked, just because you get that visitor visa doesn't necessarily mean they're going to admit you. And I can think of, somebody I talked to a couple months back. It was, they got their visitor visa in their country of origin. They said, they're going to come. I have a brother who's a U.S. citizen, and we're going to everybody's going to go to Disney World. And then they looked through his phone, and they said, well, it says right here in your phone that you're going to be looking for work in the United States. And,
that's not a good thing.
Yeah, and the guy said, well, what I really meant is I kind of work with my brother from abroad, and, we do things. And when I'm outside the United States, I do work for him sometimes. There's a reason why I was talking to those folks. It's because somebody had been, turned around, even though they had a perfectly fine visitor visa in their passport. So,
and the last comment I'd like to make before we move on to answering questions is the cancellation of visa. The consulates and the State Department is extremely active in canceling visitor visas. I get probably contacted 5 times a week, at least, of people say, my visa is canceled. And that's I don't know why. And that is probably a topic that should take its own time to it may take about half an hour to even go through the nuances of it on a very quick basis. But there's a lot of cancellation of visas that happened, and people are surprised when they go to the airport about to fly, and then in some countries they
pre-inspect you
and they contact the consulate, and then they'll say your visa is canceled, go contact the consulate. So there's a lot of cancellation of visas. The main thing you should be aware of is email address that you've given them when you apply should be active and monitored. Your mailing address that you have should be active and monitored in case they contact you, and those are some of the key things that you should be aware of.
Yeah.
So that's what I have. Brian, do you want to add anything to the...
No, I just wanted to...
It's a good Thanksgiving topic. And let's take a moment and come back and answer your questions. All right, so this is a session we take all your questions, and there's a couple of things to remember. We give you general answers to questions. We do not know the full background of the case, and therefore you should never rely on what we tell you to make decisions without consulting a competent immigration counsel of your choice. And obviously there's no attorney-client relationship established by us answering a question presented to us through this YouTube presentation. Without further delay, Brian, let's take the first question.
Yeah, this one comes from Sky Limit here. So I think this is one of those things where I got to mention as I look at this question, it seems incomplete, and this is where I have to mention that we don't see the questions until we go live, so happy to answer your question, but you'll have to repost it. We only got the back half of this question, so go ahead and post that again. It just doesn't seem to be fully
We'll do our
there.
best to Sky Limit get you an answer today.
Yeah. So from Bargab, spouse currently working on STEM OPT with Company A and Company B, H-1B CAP petition consular approved with Company A. H-1B question, I like this. Can she apply H-1B cap exempt consular petition with Company B without going for lottery? We'll switch to H-1B with Company A or Company B at the end of STEM OPT on 6/2024. So, a good question. Basically, I guess I'll state the general rule first as to whether you're considered counted under the H-1B cap. If you read the law closely, it says here is when you're considered outside of the count under the cap or exempt from the lottery. It's when you've been granted an I-94, granted H-1B status rather, or issued a visa by the consulate. And per this scenario, it doesn't seem that this individual has been legally counted. Practically speaking, though, USCIS, what they think the rules are might be different from how we read the rules. And it's, usually you may be able to file that case with Company B. That's really the bottom line for me. Yeah.
Good answer, Brian. I like the answer, and I concur.
Yeah.
AK, do medicals have to be completed to receive I-485 EAD? First question. Do they issue EAD before medical RFE? So the answer to the first question, the medicals do not have to be completed to receive an I-485 EAD. As a matter of fact, you should be able to receive your I-485 EAD before you submit your medicals, because medicals do not have to, at least according to the current rules, to accompany the adjustment of status application at the initial filing. The second part, do they issue EAD before medical RFE? The answer is yes.
Yeah.
All right.
I'll take it, yeah. So, Charis McKay. So currently working on STEM OPT with 624, 6/2024 expire, H-1B cap petition consular approved. Can I get H-1B stamped and re-enter the U.S. on F1 visa / STEM OPT to continue working on STEM OPT until 6/2024? The answer should be yes. That's really it. I mean, you're allowed to travel. I mean, I guess that H-1B cap is that H-1B cap question is kind of a red herring. Basically, you're allowed to travel while you're on STEM OPT, and that's that.
Scott Lillimit has given us his question.
Yes.
And his question is, first part of my question was, USCIS says there's a lot of demand for EB rest of the world. How can be companies laying off people and there is much demand? And if yes, how will it affect the priority date and people who have lost jobs and had filed 485? How can companies be laying off people and at the same time the demand is higher? Well, that's a good question. I do have an answer in my mind, at least. I don't have the answer. I have my answer. And my answer is that I think there is a time lag between people applying and the economy tanking. So when they're saying that they have a lot of demand, these people already applied. And the applications filed not this month, last month, and the previous month. I think we're starting to see layoff now. Mm-hmm. So again, that will affect numbers, obviously. I just don't see a broad layoff across the country yet for it to impact the numbers. But the bottom line, I don't understand how can be rest of the world demand so high in the tens of thousands when a couple months before they stated that they were moving green cards from rest of the world to India.
I mean,
last year.
I mean, I understand. To be clear, we understand what they're saying. We understand what they're saying. It just doesn't seem to.
It doesn't add up.
Yeah, what they said, and again, I guess it points to their data being bad, and usually older data is worse data. So I'm going to trust what they're saying, and considering that they've rolled back the visa bulletin, I guess I have to accept it. But and I guess kudos to those people who got those employment-based green cards, when maybe those should have gone to rest of the world folks during the last fiscal year. But those, how they got there, how they get from point A to point B doesn't make sense. But very clearly we're at point B.
Yeah.
The rest of the world demand. That's what they think.
It is. Yeah. How did we get from A to B is unknown.
Yeah.
But we are at point B. That's well.
Yeah.
Well
it reads all over the visa bulletin. The demand is there.
And SANSFAX is adding to it by saying if EB2 rest of the world got cutoff date, doesn't it mean each country can get only maximum 4K visa approximately this year, question mark. Even if there is 5 rest of the world countries using 4K each, shouldn't the other visas fall across the EB2 India? So you've asked the same question.
Yeah, and so I'm going to sort of explain what I think Sanfax is saying here. How can they just say rest of the world is suddenly backlogged? They break India and China into a category, and believe me, I don't want to have to scroll 30 feet across the visa bulletin page when I go to the. But I want to know which country is using how many visas. I want to know, why should the Canadians be penalized if it's only 5 countries out of the rest of the world that are using more visas than, yeah.
So it is mathematically 100% possible to reach rest of the world number, okay? Meaning that the 25%, which is 1 quarter because they look at it quarterly, of the yearly allocation, and that is 28.6% of the 197,000, whatever that math comes out, I think it's 51,000 or something. 25% of that number, is reached without a single country reaching its 7% allocation.
Okay.
So it is mathematically possible that 25% in totality is consumed or soon to be consumed without a single country reaching its 7%.
Okay, that makes sense to me.
Okay, so it is that mathematical possibility or probability, whatever it may be, is what they're talking about. Just to answer the question.
Well, fair enough. I still think
you're not buying it with your fair enough answer.
No,
and
I understand. Basically, no country can take more than 7%. But just because they're even if nobody gets the 7%, to their full allocation, it's still possible to use up all the visas available for all these other countries. That makes sense to me.
Now, having said that, it is also possible that a country have reached a 7% in the first quarter, and they've capped it, but they don't believe it is necessary to list them separately for right now, because it is not a chronic, permanent cap that they're going to have to deal with. For example, China, India, Philippines, El Salvador.
They get a permanent column on the visa bulletin for a reason. Mexico,
and
too.
Mexico have a permanent column because it is consistently over 7%.
Yeah.
Now, it is possible that a couple countries reach 7%. They've capped it. They're just not going to list it because they're not going to change the format of the visa bulletin. That's also possible.
Yeah. Well, you know what drives me mad? I think it drives people in our audience mad, Sam, is it's lack of information. I think I would love to see how this breaks down on a monthly basis. And shouldn't they, if they're able to make these calculations on a monthly basis, shouldn't they have their presumed usage on a monthly basis, Sam?
100%. Now, it's also very possible, let's get the third possibility, that bunch of countries hit the 7%.
I can't fathom which country is hitting 7%.
Okay. Canada, I mean,
I guess the 4,000 or so is not a very large number either.
Yeah, it's very possible that certain countries hit the 7%, but they are clueless. It is very possible, and that's what I think the suggestion here. They are clueless. They're incapable of figuring it out.
They don't know until the visas are used whether or not they're going to be used.
They have no idea. They know that the whole number got used up for right now because it's a quarterly. Yeah. They can oversubscribe. They can oversell 1 quarter. Yeah. And remember, the regulation says you don't have to have exact numbers.
Yeah.
Okay, you only have to have an exact numbers really at the end of the year. Yeah. But on a quarter-to-quarter basis, you don't have to have exact numbers.
Yeah. So what this visa bulletin can be interpreted as, is basically for this quarter we are out. And again, we still think the January visa bulletin is going to be more interesting because that's when the next round of visas are going to be released, and maybe it eliminates that rest of the world backlog, for example.
The visa bulletin number is nothing but putting together a mix of secret sauce. Yeah. And the secret sauce known only to few people. And per regulations, little extra spices, little extra salt, or little extra that, it doesn't matter. It's allowed.
You know, Sam, I like your secret sauce metaphor. You know, it's a little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper, a little bit of garlic, a little paprika, a little bit of cumin.
And grab whatever it is and dump
Yeah,
it.
it's that whatever that is that really bothers me, and it bothers people out there. I want to know what
It bothers me
is.
too. But I'm coming to terms with the fact that the Visa bulletin numbers is nothing but grabbing numbers and guesstimates and charts that are not solidly documented, and making conclusion, and the whole world is just at a shock how we do business here in
Sam,
the US.
I gotta say, I'm really in love with this metaphor, and I'm really concerned, about the restaurant secret sauce where you know, like 10 of 11 ingredients, and when you ask what that last one is, they say no, we're not going to tell you what that is. It makes a guy like me question about whether that's a good ingredient at all.
True.
I
agree.
Yeah.
All right, this one's yours.
Okay. So from Mooney, received update in I-45, case transferred to NBC, but with incorrect priority date in the document. 2021 should be 2012. Sent request to correct on October 5th, no response yet. How can I follow up? Current next month. So first, I got to say, maybe you don't have it. I'm going to sort of, calm everybody down a bit. 'Cause I'm clearly excited about that last metaphor. That oftentimes, USCIS receipt notices have typos that aren't really manifest in the record, but you owe it to yourself to follow up on this. So, one, USCIS service requests, Sam. How do you feel about those? Their ability to.
They are. Every now and then, I get surprised, and then my complete lack of faith of them is not rock bottom. So they're not very encouraging, but you should do them.
Yeah, so I've talked to people about this. Yeah, you should do them because you kind of owe it to yourself to remove all impediments. This is the sort of thing where, contacting, your congressman might be that. I've seen some people who have had really helpful congressional offices, either your congressman or one of your two state senators, or rather senators from your state. And that's something that can be potentially helpful. One thing we haven't talked about, Sam, is the ombudsman, the USCIS ombudsman, and they're still out there. They're still available. You can go to their website and put in an inquiry. But boy, they are backlogged, and so I think I'd still say your congressman is probably your best point at this point.
Yeah, I agree.
You may be able to get an answer from USCIS if somebody is to tell you. In writing, which is all the better. That's a good point, Sam. I have to make. I don't trust a single thing that they can't tell you in writing. That if somebody tells you it on the phone, the people at USCIS on the phone, I don't trust it until it's in writing.
And I know that people call me and call you and say, "What are you telling me? I just talked to what's her name, Emma?"
Yeah.
And she told me, or they told me, this, and that, or you can file this, and we will tell them, no, you cannot file this, do not do this. But they told me to do it. They are clueless. Here's the reality. If you follow their advice, and their advice is wrong, and your case blow up, who are you going to go after and say, you gave me the advice, and you damaged me because of your bad advice?
Yeah.
They're going to say, sorry, you should have gone to an attorney.
Yeah.
Why are you listening to us? We're not lawyers. We don't know what the heck we're talking about. You will not have no one. You will have no court, no administrative agency, no judge will ever care about your problem.
Yeah.
Now, you go talk to an attorney who clearly gives you a bad advice. You have recourse. We practice law, and we have a license to practice law, and we are responsible for every word we say to our clients. You need to go to a competent counsel of your choice to advise you. Do not listen to, believe, or put any weight into any advice USCIS tells you on the phone.
Yeah, I mean, as an attorney, I think of, what can I bank on, and what some person on the phone without it, coming written from an official source is not something I'm going to believe in. But even Sam, written things from official sources, you can't necessarily trust that entirely whatsoever. I mean, the common example I've seen lately is these I-45 RFEs that say, hey, we need you to, tell us which one of these cases to close because we need to close one of these cases. You have two green card cases. They're telling people to close one of their cases, and no, you don't have to. I mean, you're allowed. If you're entitled to, call me when my case is approved. Then I'll tell you. You can approve the other one.
But this is written from the government. Look, it says USCIS on top of it, Brian, and it's official. It's an official envelope. It's folded. It looks like a government document. How can I not believe it?
I don't know. There's this lawyer advice that says don't take advice from the opposing party.
No, not don't take advice from the opposing party. Our system of government told us never trust the government. It's in the Constitution. We do not trust the government. It is embedded, entrenched in the way we conduct business in the U.S. You have to treat the government always with suspicion. That's the only way democracy can survive. And in this instant, when the government sends you an official letter, take it to a lawyer of your choice, a competent lawyer of your choice to advise you. The fact that it's on paper, it's sometimes not worth the ink that's on that paper.
Yeah.
Let's go to the next question here from Gokul. He's already on the screen.
Okay.
What are the average processing time for 765, 475 application now? Question mark. No one knows anymore, but let's read the next question. Is the timeline same for applications to the Texas Service Center that later on got transferred, for cases transferred from the Texas Service Center to the NBC?
So first let's address the first question. USCIS posts on their website their processing times for 765 and I-485 applications. And, we had a session about this maybe, I don't know, I think it was a while ago, Sam, when they changed the system. And presently, if you go to the USCIS website and say, how long is it going to take one of these? It's a really, really a fun number. It's like, we're going to get to 80% of these cases in X number of months. So the answer is, how long? That's not even average.
They've destroyed any predictability.
Yeah.
They've destroyed any predictable or any meaningful and helpful information to figure out what's the average processing time.
Yeah, and again, Sam, this is where I say people want information, and you know what I think would make me really happy if I was waiting for like an EAD? I'd want to see, your number X of, 3,000 in line, and I want to be able to log in every day and say, okay, I'm down, 10 in the queue. Something along the lines. You're with officer number 475, and you're in that spot in the queue. And
why does anybody care about the processing time for 80% of the cases?
Yeah.
What about the processing time for all the cases?
Yeah.
Average processing for all the cases. And why are you holding on 20% of the cases? Why are you sitting on 20? That's a significant number of cases.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is. But what is the average time from our experience, Brian? To help Gokul a little bit.
So. I usually tell people a priority date current, adjustment of status, 10 to 14 months. That's about what do you usually think?
Adjustment status?
Yeah.
It's not less than 12 months.
Yeah.
It's more than 12 months.
Yeah. So fair enough. I don't. That's maybe I'm a little bit short on that, but it's possible to get them. I mean, that's my general number for all I-485s, for the record. Like I see a family-based one sometimes get approved in about 10 months.
What about 765?
I've been seeing some really short ones and some really long ones.
The short one are in the 80% and the long one are in the 20%.
Yeah.
How confusing.
Yeah. So I think the other question here is the timeline the same for applications to the Texas Service Center that later get transferred to the NBC? So I think the scenario this person's discussing is this: your case is filed at the Texas Service Center, right? And then you look up Texas Service Center processing times, and it says something ridiculous like 24 months, and you say, okay, fine, I guess I'm getting my case done in 24 months. Then you get a notice that says transferring to the NBC, and then you wonder how long your case processing time is there. And the problem with transfer to the NBC is they don't post processing times for an I-485 at the National Benefits Center. They post basically Texas, Nebraska, employment-based anyway, and then a zillion and one local field offices.
Right.
And you sort of all you can really do is sort of presume it's going to be at your local field office. But what we know from the last year is that they were shifting cases around to
Anywhere.
any local field office. So this is another situation where the data, what they tell you, is unclear, not useful. Again, I think I want it's probably illegal, but I think I want to put like an air tag in my I-485 case to see where it is at any time.
That'll be frustrating. It'll be fun to watch to track.
Yeah, no, it really would be. I'd love to just watch it go down the highway, that sort of thing.
That'll be interesting. If I have both F1 visa, OPT EAD, and an H-1B visa, can I choose any visa to enter the United States as a port of entry? So if you have a valid F1 and H-1B now, however, that's true in limited circumstances and in theory.
Yeah.
So for example, if you got an H-1B visa approved and you left the country, so you got on H-1B visa, now you left the country, I don't think the CVIS is terminated.
Yeah,
now.
exactly. So you guys who have been on student status know there's a system called SCVIS that is basically how the CBP manages the student visa program. And if you do a change of status from F1 to H1B, one of the things they do is snuff out your SEVIS record. Meaning, if you come back to the United States, and they'll look up, you show your F1 visa, you give your documents. If they're doing their job right, they'll look you up and say, no, SEVIS record terminated. And if they're nice to you, they'll say H1B or nothing.
How does the designated school official get notified of the H-1B approval?
To the best of my knowledge, and we don't get access to the SEVIS system, from USCIS when they approve the case. They get an update in the
so
SEVIS
they
system.
can terminate this automatically when they get the H-1B.
Yeah.
Do they go back to the employee, to the student?
I usually hear that schools will call somebody up and say ask them about the status of their H1B case.
I saw that too. Yeah. So if, for example, you need to contact the school and make sure that your SEVIS record is valid before you attempt to enter on an F1 OPT.
Now this scenario, I agree. Now this scenario, talks about having an H1B approval. And then I guess apparently not using going to get that visa and then not using it until for some time later, presumably trying to use up all that STEM OPT time. Do you think the customs folks can potentially say, what are you doing here? You just got this H1B visa and you're coming back as a student?
Well, I mean they can, but no, I don't think if you have a valid CVIS, you can just say, listen. The H-1B is with a specific employer. I mean, you can deal with that, but also they can get easily confused as well.
Yeah, I mean, so I guess
potential problem. So that's a practical side I was talking about.
Yeah, I guess it goes back to the thing. Who's guaranteed entry to the United States? Nobody but a U.S. citizen with their passport in hand. So it could potentially confusion
So
there.
in theory, the answer is yes, assuming the CVIS is valid.
Yeah.
I see a lot of concerns with scenarios that Brian have raised, for example, and the fact that if you are on an H-1B, I mean, so there are some concerns with that from a practical standpoint.
Yeah, it just seems like you're somebody who's in that scenario is really kind of going against the wind. You've gotten your H-1B visa approved, you're approved for H-1B status. Get on H-1B status.
EB2 India, January 2016, gave up the dream of getting a green card. Well, Kumar, do not give up the dream because I think everybody is getting it in about a 10-year time frame.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I've been doing my job for about 12 years, and I'm seeing the people that I helped in the beginning of that career. I'm picking it up and saying, congratulations. You didn't know me back then, but I did an H-1B case for you. And 2010, 2011, 2012, and I'm happy to see, you've gotten your green card now. People do get there, and about 10 years is right. That, I think it's like from the Cato Foundation, it's something like, estimate about 30 years to get a green card from India. It's a number which I believe is the statistics behind, but practically speaking, it isn't how it's played out,
I'm going to mess around with Kumar a little bit.
Yeah?
I don't believe Kumar has given up the dream.
Yeah. Why?
Because he's with us on YouTube.
Yeah.
So we have faith in your patience. Hang in there, and things will resolve themselves.
Yeah, I mean, for the record, all it takes is somebody to, change the law, fix the backlog. We've got a good snap there.
Yeah.
And then suddenly the door is open,
Flood this door, yeah.
open again. I mean, nobody expected the COVID mass availability of visas, and it's,
I was looking at USCIS website for how to bring parents from India and saw one document, cohabitating partners, PM blah 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 PDF, where elder parents can be approved for derivative visa H4 plus. Please suggest. Okay, so I'm a little bit confused.
So it sounds. Well, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Parents cannot be approved for derivative H4 visa. Let me make that very simple. I do not know anything about this document, but Brian wrote it down.
Yeah, I mean, I see the phrase in the title, cohabiting partners, and that sounds. It doesn't sound like it refers to parents.
Yeah, it looks like perhaps significant others. Yeah, I got to look at the document, but it's not likely dealing with parents H4.
Yeah, that date, I presume that's a date there, that last couple bits of it, 08/17/11, that might have related to same-sex partnerships, for example, prior to...
Vishal, drop that note in the comments after the YouTube session, and that will give us a reminder to maybe email you
Yeah,
back.
It sounds interesting. I really want to, I'm intrigued.
On general, of course, we're not giving you legal advice, but we're going to look up this document, tell you what this document is about at least.
Yeah.
All right, wonderful. Vishal Singla.
Yeah, it's the same person. How can I?
However, is currently pays. Okay, good.
Yeah.
All right, so please, drop that.
Yeah, I mean, I have that in my notes here, but yeah, I'm interested to see that.
Yeah. Speeding ticket, county fine $500, another state fine $200 speed fine. This needs to be added to the list of tickets.
So I presume Kumar here is talking about an I-45 application. Yeah.
Yeah. I think there is a limitation. I think it was a $500 limitation.
Yeah.
I don't remember offhand.
So this is the sort of thing where I don't remember those things offhand. And you know what I would do? It's the same thing that you can do, Kumar. Is you can read the I-485 instructions, and they put the exact threshold that they're concerned about.
You get 2 speeding tickets. List them.
Yeah. But yeah. No doubt. And no doubt.
Who cares about 2 speeding
Any
tickets?
concerns, questions? Talk to counsel. Most people don't file an I-45 themselves. You're working with an attorney, Kumar. That attorney is surely going to be happy to answer that question.
But I want to throw in a $500 ticket for speeding. You must be doing some serious speed.
Yeah. That's a beefy ticket. That is a beefy ticket.
So, and some of them could be of a concern.
Yeah.
To be honest with you. Definitely needs to be looked at carefully through with a competent counsel. Look at the ticket, look at the violation, look at the penalty, and why it's that high.
It's so regional. I know there's some regions in the United States where this cost can be really high. Like I've heard of Virginia, for example, is a great place for getting some really, really, really big tickets.
Yes. I saw your next comment, Kumar. Yes. I think you need, if this is a serious violation, I mean, you're like double the speed limit. Like if you're doing like 60 on 25, that can be of a concern.
Yeah.
Ravi, EB1C filed more than a year ago, went to pending status when visa exhausted in September. USCIS approving recently filed cases. What are the odds that visa numbers exhaust again before cases is adjudicated? Well, in the first preference category, they have mentioned in the last visa bulletin that high demand of the worldwide visas. I think it's one of these.
Yeah, increased demand and number use in the employment first category for China and India. Here's what it says. Let's see what it fully says. It says visa availability in the employment first category for China and India. Increased demand and number use in the first employment category combined with decreased visa number availability for fiscal year 2023 compared to fiscal year 2022 will most likely necessitate establishment of final action dates and application filing dates for China and India in the coming months to hold number use within the maximum allowed under fiscal year 2023 annual limits. Situation will be continually monitored and necessary adjustments will be made accordingly. I think we were talking about this last week,
Yeah.
where basically, they say coming months, and that seems to be thinking that even the new visa availability in January, might not fix that, might not keep them current.
And Ravi's follow-up, will EB1C India retrogress in coming months? If yes, how far dates will move? We have no information, except that little blurb that came in the visa bulletin.
Yeah.
Again, another secret sauce situation where we really don't have information that we can project.
Yeah,
at this time.
it's surprising because, again, they're talking about decreased visa number availability. There's still an additional 57,000 visas available this year. That's more than the 140,000 we get on a normal year.
It's 7 o'clock now,
Yeah.
but there is an excellent question that somebody is asking that I would like to put here on the screen.
Yeah.
Can we return to the U.S. on H-1B visa and use the 60-day grace period when company fires employee outside the U.S.? I'm going to say yes.
I'm going to say yes for sure, but
In theory.
I would say, so yes. So paraphrasing, of course, the H-1B 60-day grace period say it's not a violation of status to not have to be employed for up to 60 days during the validity period of your status. Well, you don't have status, but so I think there's a great argument to be made. But what is your practical concern, Sam? And I expect it's the same that mine's going to be. But
The practical concern that the officer at the border is going to say, what are you talking about? You don't have a job.
yeah,
And they're going to say, no, I'm not going to let you in.
yeah.
And those guys have zero, maybe they're very knowledgeable in a lot of other things, but clearly they are not knowledgeable in H-1B
Now,
visa.
yeah, my first thing says, well, okay, well, maybe a letter from your attorney can help on that, and I'd say, you probably not going to change it. Odds are you're probably not going to change an officer's mind on that. They have pretty big discretion. I would say it could potentially give you a better chance of success, but I'm not going to say, you talk to me, if somebody talks to me on the phone and tells me that fact scenario, I'm not going to say, oh yes, slam dunk, because you're not in the United States until you're in the United States. Yeah.
I think your analysis is right on. My concern would be that the officer at the border is not going to give you the benefit of the doubt, especially in an environment when there's a lot of layoffs.
Yeah.
They always, when they are confused or confronted with a complicated question, the easy answer for them is to say no.
Yeah.
The power of the government in not saying yes.
Yeah.
The power of the government in saying no.
Fundamentally, though, you've been counted against the cap. You have a valid H-1B stamp. If you can find another company in the United States to sponsor an H-1B for you, you can file that with premium processing and get back. There you go. Get back to the United States pretty quickly. However, I fully understand that it's a heck of a lot easier to get a job in the United States while you're in the United States.
Yes. So with that, we end today's session. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. And enjoy your turkey, enjoy your time with family, and we'll see you guys next week. Are we available next week?
I think we're here next week, yeah.
Yes, next week. And if there's anything changed, we will announce it.